All right, so now I have all of my joint stitches in. You can see how cute it looks. Put those in, and I have it right above the knee. So you can see, you know, how that baby would pose and feel. You can see, can sit on her own. Now, whenever I add the heavy head in, probably won't be able to do that as easily. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do next. I'm going to add in her head inside of the body, and I just have to make sure that I can manipulate this silicone base around this zip tie, because this hole is small. And then my goal is to get it, the zip tie, to pull right around this edge in here, you know, so it will hold right around that base of that silicone. Okay, and some people choose to have it where the head can easily, you know, turn from side to side, especially whenever you have the reborn dolls and stuff that they actually have like a ridge set in here, and some silicone dolls do have like a plastic ring here. I can't think of what it's called right now, but since this is a silicone, this isn't going to be able to turn easily. So if I want to turn her head while I'm holding her, because she's that really soft silicone anyway, her neck can easily turn and, you know, lay without that. All right, so I'm going to kind of see where the front of the head is, and I want to line that up, you know, right where the front of the body is. And then I'm going to go ahead and squeeze this section in here to manipulate that head through the body. So I'm going to go ahead and probably have to pick her up to kind of manipulate this here. I'll go ahead and move the camera down more into my lap, because I'll probably be working right here to get that in there. I want to be careful not to pull on the baby's head or pull on that seam that I just put in there. That was actually easier than I thought it was going to be. All right, so before I seal her up, you can see where that ridge is because of the thickness of that base. So because of that ridge right there, I might actually want to add just a little more filling right here in the body, because you can see that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to carefully kind of squeeze this back out just a little bit. Remember, I'm not pulling on the head at all. I'm just squeezing and touching this base, manipulating that. There we go. Because you don't want to stretch that seam at all. I have just a little bit of stuffing left, so I'm going to go ahead and stick that in there. Sometimes you don't realize how big that much room that's going to take up. I'm not sure if I'll be able to 100% be able to hide that ridge that she's going to have, because this head base comes down and kind of sticks out. I could probably trim around the edge and round that off. Maybe I'll do that real quick. I might trim this edge just a little bit so it doesn't stick out so much. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of cut that edge right off the front and kind of trim that down. Kind of angle it so it's not going to be having that weird push out on the front anymore. Just a little bit there, kind of angle that down. I'll probably do the same here in the back, just angle, get rid of that edge that kind of sticks out the back, because I'm not going to actually need that to hold the head in place. I'm making a mess all over my floor as usual. There, so it's a little bit more rounded if you're, you know, able to see the difference of that sticking out. I might actually do a little bit more on this side. Don't want it to interfere with her shoulder at all either. Here we go. Yeah, so that's a little bit better. It's not so sticking out. Okay, let's see if I can get all these pieces off my lap. There we go. All right. Oh, it's sticking to me. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and stick her head back in and see if that made any difference. Making sure I see where the front is. And I go ahead and what I first do is I just put that lip right over, and then I'm going to just lay her down and easily just squeeze only the silicone, not pulling from the neck. I'm only squeezing, pushing down. Not sure if you can see where I am. I'm just pushing down on the silicone and pulling on the cloth body just ever so slightly. I'm going to turn her over the front. Push, not pulling on her neck. I want to get that ridge right up to her neckline and see how that looks. Oh, that's much better than what it was before. And no matter what, she's going to have that hard and dairy here because she needs to have that neckline. I also want to just make sure that just enough of the head is lined up with the seam in the back. You know, if I want to put her head, you know, maybe slightly to the side before I tighten it, I could do that. But, ooh, she has stuff on her little mouth. But I want her actually facing the front. And I'm going to go ahead and line up the bottom ridge here of the zip tie along with the bottom ridge of her neck. And same with the back. And then I'm going to go ahead and thread through that zip since it's ready to go. Use both hands here, I guess, to get it started. Alright, so now as it gets tighter, I'm going to just double check in the front to see if that is, you know, guiding it to where I want it to be on this bottom here. I know her head's not going to fall off, so I don't want to squeeze it so tight where, oh, of course I'm going to tighten a lot more than this, but I don't want to squeeze it so tight to where I'm going to be pulling the head off of her little silicone base that I just fixed in there. So I'm going to go ahead, make sure I have that right where I want it in the front. as I'm working this in the back nice and slowly. Make sure it's all around where I want it. Here we go. It looks good in the front. And there in the front so far. And I can see, like by testing, to see if I can see any of that, you know, silicone base plate in there, bending her head down, to the side, to the back. There's some little silicone crumbs on her from thing. I'm going to see, you know, how her head falls back, if I like what that feels like. To me, it feels like her head is not going to go anywhere, so I'm not going to tie this zip. I'm not going to pull it any tighter. But before I trim, I'm going to go ahead and kind of push this plastic knob thingy, whatever you call it, the knob part on the zip tie. I'm going to kind of weasel it in there so the hard edge of that zip tie is kind of hidden in within the material. If I can get it to rotate there. You're kind of moving that around because I don't want it to be where I'd be able to feel it. Use using another needle to kind of push that to guide it around a little more. And I'll pull that back over. There you go. Alright, so now you see how I have that nub hidden in there. So now I'll go ahead and I'll trim just up to, you know, about this much, and I'm going to tuck the rest in and see if I like how that feels, because sometimes if you trim right here, then you have that sharp edge that you don't really want to feel. So I'm going to trim to, let's see, I'm going to lay down on the neck here. I'm going to trim to see if it goes to here and see what that looks like. If I don't like how that looks, then I might cut it short if I can get it to slide over a little bit more. That's what I usually do whenever I test that. Throw the rest away and go ahead and trim off that point. So I trim it to, I'm not sure if you can see, kind of like a little triangle point, so it's able to slide through that material, but I want to make sure that it doesn't poke through, so I will trim that point just a little bit so it's not sharp, so that loses that sharp edge. I'm going to go ahead and push that through and weave it back through the neckline, being very careful not to poke her little silicone head. And once you get it started, it starts to go in easier than at the beginning. I can feel it starting to slide a little more. I can feel it stuck on the material in there. There it's going. This one might not work like that. Let's see here. Let's move in the... I need this part to stay in place. There we go. Well, I'll see it has that little gap there, and I can see where it's poking over here, but it's not laying as flat as I'd like it to. Let me see if I can manipulate it through this fabric. Ugh. Sometimes my fingers are so big. I'm working on these little babies. That's what you use the needles for. See how the material is stuck right there on that plastic. I need to try to pick it up with my needle to move it over. Like I said, you don't have to do the tuck. You can just trim it right off, but I wanted to see if that would work first, just so I wouldn't have that pokey area. Sometimes it just takes time to manipulate that all, that's all. I should have cut it just a little bit shorter, but if it was any shorter, I'd actually have trouble getting it to go in. There we go. Now you can see that there's no sharp edge. I can feel a little bit where that comes to here, but not that big of a deal. You can see that there's no pokey section there at all. And if I can get it to slide right there, I might trim that little stitch. And you don't have to sew that shut. That can stay raw like that. If you want to sew it shut, I suppose that you could do a stitch there, but I am not going to worry about that at all. Whoops, going the wrong way. Alright, so, there's little fuzzies on her now. There we go. So now we have our new cuddle body. You can see how floppy she is, the way she moves, put her hands on her face. Now, oh, how cute. And she still has that nice weighted belly, back area. And like I said, I think it works better when you have the glass beads the whole way up to the knees. I feel it just has that weight distributed better. I do only have the weight in just the hands. I was going to put weight in this area, which of course now that I have her sewn up, I would probably prefer to have glass beads in here too. But her hands are heavy, but I think I'd prefer her arms to be just a little heavier. But she is able, you know, if I wanted to lay her and put her in, you know, different poses now, you can see that this body poses, you know, however I lay her down, but having just a little bit extra weight, I think in this section up here, that forearm area, it would have probably been a better idea to do that. So my next Reggie baby body that I'm going to be switching out, I'm definitely going to add the glass beads in this section. but she's still way more posable than what she was originally, and just so cute. But yeah, so I would definitely recommend putting the glass beads in that section too. But I'm not going to switch her. She's staying like this. So, okay, go ahead and find a little outfit for her and show you in her little clothes.